Yeah, a lot of people wonder how we got in a situation the way the United States is right now, where we have a heavy income tax rate, a lot of state and local taxes. Bill of Rights is kind of being torn up piece at a time in many instances, from violations of freedom of speech and even the right to bear arms, which is going on recently. A lot of people wonder how it happened. And if you look back, you look back at 1913, that was an infamous year. Federal Reserve Act and Income Tax Act, that type of stuff. Well, a lot of people back then were smart too. A lot of people did realize what was going on. A lot of people did not want to get involved in World War I. A lot of people realized what was going on with the income tax. But for the most part, the masses weren't. And that's exactly the situation there is today. The elite are shrewder than shrewd. I think the only way to actually get at the elite is to go for the jugular, per se. You have to really hit them in the pocketbook and hit them like at their enterprises in any other possible way you possibly can. That might be simply saving yourself some money. Why do any frivolous spending at all? Why do any of that type of stuff? Why waste money on entertainment or whatever the hell it is? Why waste money on it? So what? Actually, entertainment is probably one of the biggest tools that the elite uses to brainwash Americans. Entertainment itself. A lot of people are addicted to it, so that's one thing. Now, I want to point out a couple other things about ancient history, basically in America a little bit. Not too much ancient history, but more within the last 100 years. A lot of people during the time of J.P. Morgan considered him, he was USA all the way through and through. The wealthy man, the big, the big robber baron, but he was respected by everybody. But a lot of people liked him better because they figured he was not with the Rothschilds. And it turned out not to be correct at all. Actually, it turned out that J.P. Morgan was an agent for the Rothschilds, and his wealth was a hell of a lot smaller than people thought when his will was actually exposed to the public upon his death. He was 100% working for the Rothschilds. So a lot of people supported J.P. Morgan because they figured he was against the Rothschilds and they were anti-Semitic. You know what? I almost see the same type of analogy could be true with Vladimir Putin. Vladimir Putin, they say he's against the Rothschilds. He screwed the Rothschilds over. He's a big, important, very powerful, wealthy person. Well, they say he's not wealthy, but he is wealthy. In Russia. I think that's another scam that's going on where the actual even truth movement is being hoodwinked, hook, line, and sinker all the way with Vladimir Putin in Russia today. But one issue that you can always use as an acid test to see if they want to take away your freedoms. See where they stand on gun control. Russia today, they're all for gun control. Vladimir Putin, he's all for gun control. The Russian news agencies are for gun control. CNN's for gun control. They all stand together. So that tells you something where your rights are going to be trampled in every way, shape, and form, and in every respect. So that alone tells you, that's a quick acid test to just see where they really stand. So Russia today is actually a propaganda piece. Vladimir Putin, I think, is wealthy beyond your belief because when you look at the Russian state, they have a vast amount of natural resources, oil. They're actually the #1 oil producer in the world. Maybe the United States might be in 5 years. But where does all that wealth go? To the state? And who runs the state? Vladimir Putin. I think he's just a big showpiece for the apparatus behind the scenes that's collecting all the wealth for Russia. So much for the alternative media coming from that angle. Now, as far as actually the alternative media, it's always been around in the United States. As a matter of fact, if we look back before World War I, in August of 1940, a Gallup poll stated that 83% of Americans were against entering World War II in the 1940. Thus, we had Pearl Harbor. Later on, convinced people. So, this is actually a good analogy with 9/11, with the Twin Towers coming down, and another good analogy with Sandy Hook, Connecticut shooting, because it does look like it's a 100% scam. At first, I didn't want to say that, because sometimes there's people jumping on conspiracy theories left and right. But, we see, first there was a rifle was used. That's what was stated by people who should know exactly what weapon was used, right? In other words, if he was using a rifle, he'd be found dead with a rifle. The rifle wouldn't have been sitting in the car in the trunk. Then he said the rifle was not used. Then he said it was an AR-15 Bushmaster rifle, 223, and then it wasn't because I could see the film and I could see it's not one of those. It's a wood stock rifle that loads from the top. And then he said it was 2 or 3 or 4 pistols. So, what the hell is it? If they can't tell all their facts, and they're closing all the case for 90 days, and I guess the facts will come out straight. But this tells you something. Major conspiracy, big time. But you know what? The American public doesn't give a shit. The American public today is actually worse than the American public was in 1913 when the IRS Act got passed and the Federal Reserve Act got passed. They're worst. So I don't know what the hell to say about it, but the way I look at it, the American public gets what it deserves. But as far as my rights, I don't need Alex Jones to talk for me or either. I mean, heck, I might agree with what he says in some ways. I don't really trust him too much, but he might be just somebody looking for ratings. I don't know. Maybe he's in a business or something. That's what it seems to be. It could be. But I would think that if the rights are there and your rights are there, do what you think is right. I know, for instance, like if you have 357 Magnum pistol, this is a good pistol. Buy one. Buy one. This is a handy thing. You don't even need a magazine for it. Just open it up, and it's simple to load and that type of stuff. And if the totalitarian Nazis, whatever the hell they are, come after, don't be afraid to use it. That's all I have to say. Don't be afraid to use it. It's a matter of, us or them. That's almost what it's coming down to. Because people who want to take away your guns, they're going to do a way lot worse to you. Figure this. The Sandy Hook shooting was staged. It was staged. It was set up. And they killed people to push an agenda. So guess what those people are going to do after they get their agenda passed through? They're going to do a lot more than the Sandy Hook shooting. They're going to eliminate people. They might be playing cool for a while. Oh, they might play cool for a while. But that's not what's going to happen in the end. Genocides don't always happen immediately today. The gun rules come into play. But they do eventually. Might take 10 years, 15 years. But actually most Americans would respond to that and say, well, it's 10 or 15 years from now. Why worry about it? We'll find out about it then. So don't bother me. All I got to say to those kind of people, screw you. And actually, those type of people, I will not help if they fell in a ditch and they were dying. I would not help them at all. And that's exactly how you should be with those type of people, because they don't care about this country at all. This is not an issue to be really debated so much. It actually has to do with your personal freedom. It's like saying debating your life away, that a person could debate your life away because they decide you should die. It's almost like taking away your defense is almost like an argument for eugenics. Who has the right to die and who has the right to live? You're actually putting that decision in the hands of a few people that have all the guns, and that's what these people who are for gun control want to do. So it's not going to be an easy debate, because actually there was a lot of smart people back in 1913, a lot of smart people back in 1940 and 41, and all throughout the United States, and still things got like this. It's because the majority of people are apathetic, and they only react to the situation after it's too late. But then you can hang it up. So, but just one acid test as far as Vladimir Putin, Russia Today, and all these type of people representing alternative media and the savior of the West, that is bullshit. Vladimir Putin is a totalitarian jackass and greedy as all hell and has a big fat ego. Now, I might drop a few more dimes about this guy, but I don't know that much about everything. And I don't know if that might be too risky for myself to do. But I don't really give a shit, to tell you the truth. I just might.